All right, welcome back to the deep dive. We're so glad to have you here with us. We've been getting a ton of requests to explore the world of Rama, Lakshmana, and Sita a bit further, specifically Chapter 2, Tales of Panchavati, Love, Retribution, and Loss, from Srinikata's Rama, Lakshmana, and Hanuman, Brothers in Arms, Valmiki's Ramayana retold. So we're diving right in, ready to unpack this chapter and see what we can find.
Oh, absolutely. And it's a great chapter to dive into. I mean, this is where things really start to heat up, right? Srinikata really sets the stage here for, well, for the whole central conflict of the Ramayana, really. It's just masterful how he weaves together the themes of love and betrayal and revenge, and we see all of that starting to come together right here in Panchavati.
So let's talk about Panchavati. Srinikata describes it as like this idyllic haven. It's where Agastya sends Rama, right?
Yeah, Agastya recommends it to Rama.
But it's not just some random forest. Panchavati is important for other reasons too, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, first of all, Panchavati is deep in the Dandaka forest, and that forest is full of Rakshasas. But more specifically, it's in this region called Janasthana.
Janasthana. That rings a bell. Remind me what's so important about Janasthana.
Well, Janasthana basically means people's place, right? So you'd think it would be safe for humans, but, well, the thing is, it's actually become a stronghold for the Rakshasas. It's kind of ironic, isn't it? Srinikata uses that little detail to sort of highlight the complexities of power, how even a place that should be for humans can become, well, kind of dangerous.
It creates this tension, right? You have these peaceful exiles seeking refuge, and yet danger is lurking everywhere.
Exactly, and that danger comes in the form of Surpanakha, Ravana's sister. She's a real force of nature, this one. Cunning and, oh, she's volatile for sure. The way Srinikata describes her, she really throws a wrench into things.
Well, in her entrance, I mean, talk about dramatic. Srinikata doesn't hold back. She stumbles upon Rama and basically, like, immediately falls for him, right? And she's not exactly subtle about it.
Oh, not at all. And you have to remember the social context here. For a woman to just propose marriage to a man like that and suggest he leave his wife, that's incredibly audacious, especially back then. It shows how complex the role of women was in that society. Srinikata really uses Surpanakha to make us think about that.
And Rama, of course, is, well, Rama, the perfect picture of righteousness. He gently lets her down. But she doesn't give up, does she?
Nope, she moves on to Lakshmana. But his response is, well, it's interesting to say the least. It's almost cruel the way he rejects her, full of sarcasm, like he's intentionally trying to humiliate her, which, well,
backfires spectacularly. She attacks Sita, and Lakshmana, in a fit of rage, he disfigures her.
yeah, in that moment, the mutilation of Surpanakha, it's huge. That's the turning point.
Yeah.
Things go from a personal rejection to, like, a blood feud. It sets the stage for this massive conflict.
And then, bam, Kara arrives with his army, 14,000 Rakshasas. Talk about an escalation. The battle Srinikata describes is brutal. It's bloody. Thousands of Rakshasas end up dead.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember that even though Rama and Lakshmana win, they don't come out unscathed. I mean, Srinikata doesn't sugarcoat the cost of that victory. There's a real sense of loss. It reminds us that violence, even against evil, it has a price.
And then there's a Kampana. He manages to escape and run back to Ravana, and he doesn't exactly paint a pretty picture of Rama, does he?
No, not really. He makes Rama sound like this unbeatable warrior, like he's superhuman.
And that's what gets Ravana's attention. It's not even about revenge for his sister anymore. It's about pride. It's about proving himself. He wants to conquer this so-called invincible warrior, and, well, that's where the idea to abduct Sita comes from.
And, it's right here that Srinikata, he brings in this really interesting parallel between this ancient world and our lives today. He connects, Ravana's plan to kidnap Sita to all the scams we see all the time now.
Oh, wow. That's a great point. It's not something you think about right away, when you're reading about a demon king and a mystical abduction. But it really works. How does Srinikata make that connection?
Well, he talks about how, just like that golden deer lured Sita, scams today, they prey on our desires, our vulnerabilities. Like, think about it, all those phishing emails, those offers that are too good to be true, they play on that part of us that wants to believe there's an easy way to get something for nothing.
Yeah, you're right. It's like we get caught up in the moment, just like Sita. We let our guard down, and then, bam, we make a decision we regret. It really makes you think about how these ancient stories still have something to teach us today.
Absolutely. And speaking of lessons, let's talk about Maricha for a minute. He's the shape-shifting Rakshasa, the one that Ravana gets to help him with the plan. But what's interesting about Maricha is he's not exactly jumping for joy at the chance.
Yeah. He seems hesitant, almost like he knows it's not going to end well. What's up with that? Is he just scared of Ravana? Or is there something more going on?
I think it's a bit of both. I mean, Srinakata, he portrays Maricha as, well, as more complex than your average villain.
Yeah.
Sure, he's afraid of Ravana, but he also seems to get just how serious this is, the consequence.
So he's stuck. Knows what's right, but also knows that saying no to Ravana, yeah, that's a death sentence.
Exactly. And that's where Srinakata brings in this idea of moral compromise. In the end, Maricha chooses to obey, even though he knows it's wrong. Makes you think, about duty and obedience and the choices we make when we're up against, well, just overwhelming power.
It's a really interesting part of the story. And then it all leads to that moment, the abduction of Sita. Man, Srinakata really knows how to build suspense. You've got Rama chasing the deer, Lakshmana trying to warn him, and Sita all alone, vulnerable. It's like watching a slow-motion train wreck.
And then, bam, Ravana shows up disguised as like a holy man, classic bait and switch. He uses Sita's compassion against her. Srinakata doesn't shy away from how violent the abduction is. It's a violation. It leaves you feeling, well, the full weight of the tragedy.
The way Srinakata describes Rama's reaction when he gets back and finds Sita gone, oh man, it's heartbreaking. It's not just anger, it's this deep sense of loss, betrayal, the realization that he's been tricked, that his love for Sita was used against him.
Yeah, it's powerful. It shows just how much Rama loves Sita. He's devastated. And that fuels his determination to get her back.
But the chapter doesn't end there, does it? We see Ravana back in Lanka, celebrating his victory. Thinks he's won.
But you can feel this sense of unease. Like Srinakata's hinting that maybe Ravana underestimated Rama. He might have just set himself up for his own destruction. Leaves you wondering what's going to happen next.
Total cliffhanger. You just want to know, will Rama find Sita? Can he beat Ravana? And what about Sita? What's going to happen to her?
Srinakata leaves us with all these questions, which, well, that's what a good storyteller does, right?
No.
He makes you curious. He gets you invested. He leaves you wanting more.
Wow, this chapter really takes you on a ride, doesn't it? You go from this peaceful Panchavati to like this crazy storm of betrayal and violence and loss, all in the span of a few pages. Srinakata really knows how to keep you hooked.
Oh, he does. He does. And it's not just the action, right? What makes his version of the Ramayana so compelling is how he takes these ancient events and weaves in these insights that are, well, they're just so relevant today. You realize it's not just about gods and demons. It's about, us, human nature, the choices we make, the consequences we face.
Speaking of choices, I keep thinking about Maricha and his decision to help Ravana. Srinakata makes him seem so reluctant, almost like he knows it's a bad idea, but he does it anyway. What do you think was going on there? Was it just blind obedience, or was he trying to save his own skin?
Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? I mean, on the one hand, it seems like Maricha didn't have much choice. Ravana was all-powerful, right? Saying no would have been, well, suicide. But Srinakata also shows this inner conflict in Maricha. He's not just a mindless puppet. He understands what he's doing is wrong.
So is he just a victim of circumstance? Or is he partly to blame for what happened? It's a really complex question, and Srinakata doesn't give us an easy answer.
He doesn't, and that's what makes it so interesting, right? Great storytelling doesn't give you easy answers. It makes you think.
Yeah.
It makes you wrestle with these gray areas where right and wrong aren't so clear-cut.
And this chapter is full of those gray areas. You see it in Rama's anger after Sita's abducted, Lakshmana's fierce, almost violent protection of his family, even in Surpanakha's desire for revenge. Srinakata doesn't shy away from those darker impulses. He reminds us that even heroes aren't perfect.
Right, and that's what makes them so relatable, right? They're not these flawless beings. They're flawed. They make mistakes. They struggle just like us. And that makes their stories, their triumphs, their failures so much more powerful.
Yeah, that's what makes these ancient stories so timeless. They speak to something, something universal about being human, the challenges we all face, the choices we make. And Srinakata, he really captures that.
He does. He makes you connect with these characters. You see yourself in their joys and their sorrows. And through their stories, well, you learn something about yourself, about the world.
So as we leave Panchavati and head out with Rama on this quest to rescue Sita, what's the big takeaway you want listeners to think about? What's that one thing you hope they'll remember from our deep dive today?
I think the most important lesson here is to be aware, to question what you see and hear, Just like Sita was tricked by that beautiful golden deer, we can all be tricked by appearances, by promises that sound too good to be true.
Right, it's a good reminder that we always have to be careful to think critically. Because deception, well, it's everywhere. Not just in ancient stories, but in our own lives, too.
It is. It is. So as we continue our journey through the Ramayana, let's keep that in mind. The road ahead is going to be tough, full of, well, difficult choices. But if we stay aware, if we really think things through, we can get through those challenges and come out stronger on the other side.
Well said. So until our next deep dive, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep those minds sharp. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.